Hello, everyone. As we previously mentioned, our team is taking a small break from recording new episodes for the winter, but we didn't want to leave you hanging, so we've decided to reshare some old episodes that we've enjoyed and that have gotten a lot of good feedback, some of our favorites. You may have listened to some of these before, but sometimes listening at a different point in your life can bring a new and fresh perspective. We hope you will enjoy these. The first episode we were resharing covers a very big topic. It's one that captures a lot of people's attention for obvious reasons, and that's the topic of free will and determinism. As always, this is not us answering the question of do we have free will or is everything predetermined, but rather giving you another way to think about that question. We'll take a look at the writings of neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky, specifically his book Determined, which dives into why he believes our choices are determined by our genetics, experience, and our environment. So we hope you'll enjoy this conversation, and if you've already listened to this episode, we hope you'll listen again with a new perspective.
You know, in the world that we live in now, there are so many different ways to see the world. It's all over the map. And from listening to these podcasts, I just was struck with, wow, I can have somebody tell me their worldview, and it's a very different one maybe than I hold, but I can still learn a lot from that person, how we as human beings can live together in a more compassionate and kind way.
When life throws a challenge at you, one thing is certain. To find a resolution for every issue, every problem, for everybody, there's more than one way. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of More Than One Way. I'm Whitney Ross, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Thom Rasnick.
Hey, Whitney, how's it going?
Good, Thom. How are you?
Good, I'm good. I'm really happy that we have another friend with us here today.
Yeah.
And CB, I don't even know your last name.
It is Paul, Paul. It's a first name.
God, CB Paul.
Yep. It's a
Wow.
guy's first name.
That is quite the handle, CB Paul. That's
Yeah.
cool. All right, well, so CB's here because she helps us, as you know, Whitney, and for those of you who don't know, CB helps us all the time with our kind of our content and examples to use when we're talking about whatever it is we happen to be talking that day. And she's, I think, a very bright, insightful person, and so I thought she'd be really cool to have for this particular conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. A great part of the team, so thank you for joining us.
Well, thank y'all, and I'm excited to be here. A little different being on this side of the mic, but
That's right.
You're good.
That's right. So, you know, what I hope we can talk about is what we all know, that are here anyway. And that is the other day, a friend, as what tends to happen lately, sent a video of a podcast. And the podcast, well, two different ones. And the podcasts were about the free will. Now, I don't mean this in any kind of knockdown, drag out fight, but free will versus determinism. Do people have free will, or are we really, really conditioned in such a way that we're not even aware of? And the guy who was being interviewed is a Stanford neurobiologist and evolutionary biologist, Robert Sapolsky, and I think that's how you say his name. And he's just written a new book called Determined. And so, as the book says, he's going to come down on the side of we really don't have free will. We really, most of, if not for him, it's really all of what our behavior and how we live and the way we experience the world is a part of our mechanistic, biological, neurochemical system that is our body and our brain. And
That's no small topic.
That is no small topic. And
this is the one y'all brought me in for.
Yeah,
Perfect. We've been waiting for just the right one. And this is it.
this is it, because we just knew that you'd be able to enlighten us on this. But it's not a matter of is one better than the other. Mm-hmm. In the world that we live in now, there are so many different ways to see the world, to view the world, and it's all over the map. And these two are two kind of extremes. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there are also worldviews, and it's not that they can't fit together. They can. And from listening to these podcasts, I just was struck with, wow, I can have somebody tell me their worldview, and it's a very different one maybe than I hold, but I can still learn a lot and learn from that person how we as human beings can live together in a more compassionate and kind way.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting given this person's expertise, obviously where they're coming from and the years of research that they've done. And he really brought it back to that idea of compassion and kindness.
He really did.
So you could have, I mean, that doesn't always happen. When you have findings and things like that, sometimes they can feel kind of dry or they can feel kind of harsh given the conclusions. And he has lots of experience, and that all brought him back to the idea of, hey, we can treat each other a little better than we have. And, and here's some reasons maybe how to help us do that.
Yeah, from his research, 50 years of researching the brain, it brought him all the way to a place where I might come from a different worldview, but arrive at the same place, and that is, you don't, as we've said in other podcasts, you don't always know what's going on with people, and their immediate behavior. You can't jump to conclusions about that because you have to go way back in his mind to see what brought them to the place where they are. There's biochemical reasons, there's environmental reasons, there's genetic reasons as to why someone is the way that they are. So, for instance, CB was telling us about something just the other day, right?
Yeah, so when we were bringing up this subject, it just reminded me, not too long ago, I had started a diet. It was one of those diet apps that you can download on your phone, and it gives you a daily reading, and it's supposed to kind of help you like reset your mind to how you think about food and what you eat and how you exercise and whatnot. And so one of the daily readings, it really reshaped my mindset on some things that I was struggling with my food, especially sugar intake. And I just thought, man, am I like really, really just bad at saying no to sugary foods, donuts, cake, whatever. When you place it in front of me, I have the hardest time saying no to it. And I've been told over and over again, well, you need to have just a little bit of self-control, or if I can say no to it, you can say no to it. But when I had this daily reading, it told me that the more that you eat sugar, it produces this chemical in your brain that causes you to want more sugar, and you can't just turn it off. You have to really work at it. You have to take in more or less sugar each and every day until you can finally, wean off of those sugar cravings. And so it really reset my mindset on that. I didn't just have a yes or no choice when it came to a donut being placed in front of me. There was something stronger in my brain that was taking over. So that kind of reminded me of what we've been talking about with free will and determinism.
Yeah, it's not as easy as it looks. It's not as easy simply as because I can resist the donut, you should be able to resist the donut. It doesn't work like that. And all of his brain research and genetic research says the same thing about that.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. And so here's this scientist who's saying, we're heavily determined and influenced internally by our brain and our biochemistry, just like you were with the donut stuff. And you can't just turn that off. It takes a long time. And sometimes you can never. Sometimes what I heard from him was we just have to learn how to treat somebody who might not ever be able to say no to a particular thing. So, for instance, he talked about a family that was all overweight, and it just seemed to be a genetic thing. But that still didn't stop them from trying to lose weight, because that's just a big part of our cultural worldview. You're supposed to be fit and in shape, and yes, that can be very helpful and healthy. Well, for them, they were never going to be super skinny model type healthy, but they tried. And they tried and they tried, and they heard similar feedback from people. You just don't have enough willpower. You're just not trying hard enough. You got to get up earlier in the morning. You know, on and on and on the thing went. And somehow or another, the daughter of this family came in touch with Robert Sapolsky, and they did a brain scan, and then I think they did some blood work too. And he said, none of that's true. None of what people are telling you is right. You have more of this particular chemical in your brain. And Whitney, I think you know the name of it.
Yeah, I think it's leptin.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's a chemical that kind of regulates hunger and how you feel full and those kinds of things in the brain.
Right. Okay. So their family has more of that than the average person. And so you can't just overcome it. You can't. And so part of the deal might be somebody, like who's just going to be a little bit heavier, but that doesn't mean they're not healthy. And that doesn't mean they're not a good person. And that doesn't mean they have no willpower, and on and on and on it goes. So, just listening to him, coming from his perspective, was challenging to me on the one hand as I tried to think about. I thought I had more free will than that, but at the same time, it was heartening. Is that a word, heartening? I think it is a word.
What do you mean by that?
By heartening?
Yeah.
I mean, it touched my heart. I mean, it made, yeah.
Thanks.
I was like, like the Grinch thing.
Yeah.
The Grinch, was able to become not the Grinch anymore when his heart got bigger.
How many sizes?
Yeah.
Times,
so
right.
his thing made my heart grow at least a size,
Yeah.
I think. All right. And it was so, I really I just felt good about looking at people that way.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of looking at them as just, you have these choices and you should be able to choose, and we should all be able to always say the right thing and choose the right thing, to realize something that we all know, there's more to it than just that. Yeah. And to have the research to back it up was very, very helpful.
Yeah, and I think you and I had talked earlier, we're so quick to play comparisons.
Yeah.
Just in our world today. I mean, it's all about comparing ourselves or to people or situations. I mean, it seems like in our fast-paced world, that's just kind of where we go to quickly, instead of, like we've said in other podcasts, just taking the time to stop and think a little bit.
Yes. Take the time to stop and think. And then now we have a whole nother section of information.
Right.
To say, no, you're not bad because you weren't able to resist that donut. Because this is what's going on inside of you, and it takes more than just simply willpower. Right?
And I think it's interesting because, we've talked about a couple of food or eating related examples, but if we're talking about that same thing goes toward other decisions and behaviors as well.
It does.
And it can go to some that are really challenging in community that might have impacts on other people, much more so.
He was going to take it all the way to our court system. Which on the one hand, is that's kind of scary. But on the other hand, it's he ends up kind of being a guy who goes to court to talk on behalf of what's the newest thing going on in brain research, and what does the brain research tell us about why people are behaving the way that, or maybe not why, but here's a contributing factor as to why this person is doing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And over and over again, he'll say, if somebody is, say, take it all the way back to in the womb, if somebody's had a very difficult time in the womb because of maybe fetal alcohol stuff, mother smoking, even so much as you're in a stressful environment as a parent, and that stress is just going right into the womb, into the child in the womb, that's going to have an impact on the child once they come out. And then if that doesn't change and you end up having more stress and more violence and more things, that's going to slowly, daily have an impact on the child's brain. So much so that what he's going to say is that the frontal cortex, that frontal lobe that helps us make decisions and do all that kind of stuff, won't get fully formed. Because what he says is that stress deteriorates that.
Gotcha.
So the more stress you have, the more, right? And so he's going to say that day after day after day of a life like that is going to affect not only their brain, but their genes, the person's genes. And then that's going to end up, they're going to do some kind of socially deviant behavior, or you can almost kind of predict it in a sense. And he's saying, of course, if somebody's done something that's especially socially violent, sure, we have to take them out of society. We can't.
We're not talking about zero accountability.
Right. We can't just leave them there. But what he gave this example. You remember the example?
I do, and I thought it was so great. It's about the one with the kid with the cold.
Yeah.
Could you share that?
Yeah. Well, why don't you?
Okay. I'm trying to remember.
All right, never mind.
Exactly
I will. I will share this since I'm the one that brought it up. So he says, so what to do with people instead of just like throwing the book at them and saying you made a bad choice, you knew what you were doing and you hurt people. He's saying, okay, we have to isolate them from others so that they don't hurt anybody else. He said, but it would almost be like you're treating them as if your child had a cold and you're not going to send them to school. So you're isolating your child from others so that they don't pass on their cold to other people. But you don't say to them when they're in their room, you can't play with your toys, and we're going to tell you that you're bad and that you're horrible, and we're going to treat you badly and horrible because we need to punish you for this bad decision that you've made. We're going to try to help them get over the cold, right? So, that's really challenging, isn't it?
That's such a different model.
Very different approach to the whole crime and punishment world. But I'm not saying, that's going to happen. Obviously, that's not going to happen overnight. I'm saying that somebody's worldview like this, that has all this research to back it up, how does that inform us as a society? And then how does that inform us as people? And how do we respond to that? To me, those become the questions. And this is what's, to me, so wonderful about having different worldviews, hearing different things that might challenge the way that I see the world, but also enhance the way that I see the world.
Yeah, so I grew up in Mississippi. You all know this. I was in a very, tight-knit community where everyone kind of we definitely learned the basics of, Christianity and going to church. It was always kind of just black and white, here's right and wrong. But, this conversation with free will and determinism, it was one that if it came up, we were always told, well, you have free will, but also God knows everything about you and knows what you're going to do. So, that question would come up a lot. How is that possible? And then people would just stop talking. Nobody ever tried to, have an answer or look at it in a different way and see what it could be. So I think it's really interesting how now, being where I am and having been out in the world and moved away, it has been able to shape. And obviously what you're talking about today has given me another way to look at it as well.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. That's right. And that's once again, it's not to get into a debate over who's right or who's wrong,
Right.
which can happen.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure there is a time and a place for people to say, here's what I think and why, and here's what I think and why. And that's a very worthwhile thing. But another way to go at it is, and since our whole podcast is trying to look at issues from the idea of there's more than one way to look at these things. There's more than one way to use stuff like this, is to say, okay, I'm not sure which is 100% right or 100% wrong. Yeah. I'm not sure if there is, for me personally, I don't think there is one. I think somehow or another there's probably some combination of the two when it comes to free will and determined. I think, that we're probably highly conditioned by our, as he's saying, by our genetics and our brain and our family upbringing and the culture that we're a part of, and that all those things have to be taken into consideration. But I probably also think that there's some agency within us to choose and not choose. I don't, but I don't want to really get into a debate about that. For me, it's how did the two come together? And like from what can happen in a place like growing up in a small town, your thing on Mississippi makes me think of the movie Pleasantville. Did you ever see the movie Pleasantville?
I don't know that one.
God, it's so old. So there would be no reason for you to be honest. So, but it's a movie of about a kid who is living in very, very stressful times. So I guess it would be like the 90s, 80s, 90s.
I think that's right. Okay,
so he's like and everything's stressful and it's hard and there's no doubt about it. It's messy. His parents have gotten a divorce and it's a difficult society that this kid's grown up in. So he finds a lot of solace and a lot of stability in watching old 1950s sitcoms.
Sitcoms, yeah.
Have you ever watched it ever? You guys, have you ever watched it? Oh my God! Yeah. Okay, so yes, for instance, like an old 1950s sitcom would be like Leave It to Beaver, or Father Knows Best,
something that really just painted an ideal situation where everybody's happy, everything's going well,
right? And that was Pleasantville.
No conflict.
Pleasantville was all in black and white. They're always in black and white, but it is this ideal world, Women know what they're supposed to do. Yeah. Men know what they're supposed to do. The basketball team never misses a shot. It always goes in. There's no such thing as fire, so the fire department's there to get cats out of the trees. That's like the worst thing that goes on in town.
Literally called the fire department multiple times in my life growing up to get cats
out
of
trees.
Well,
there you go. So I knew it. So Mississippi and Pleasantville feel very close to me, to one another. And that's a lovely place oftentimes to have that where everybody knows. We all have the same worldview. We're all on the same page. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do when it's the time to do it. And that works until it just simply doesn't work anymore. Until a mom comes along and doesn't want to be the one cooking all the time and cleaning all the time. And, that maybe there's more to them, right? Yeah. Or something comes along like in the movie where you read a book that's outside the norm and it challenges your life and it changes everything. And that's kind of like what, free will determinism. It's kind of like what comes into my life, into my Pleasantville, and says, hey, how about looking at it this way for a little while and see what it does? And it can be disrupting. Yeah. It can be hard. But it can also help us to grow. And for me, a big part of my worldview is consciousness. So it can help us to become more conscious, more aware. And in this instance, it's more aware that when people are choosing, there's a lot going on.
It's not just simply yes or no.
It's not just simply yes or no. It's not just simply, from my perspective, no offense to Mississippi, God gave us free will and we can always just choose the right thing all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That for me becomes the opposite of what this guy who talks about determinism, and that becomes a very limiting worldview as opposed to a expanded worldview.
So I have a question for you, Thom.
Good. Yay. Yay.
So when we're talking about all of this, it makes me wonder, can you change it? If you just have those, the chemicals or whatever has happened to you in the womb, like, are you just ruined for life, or can you reshape things? Is there...
Yeah, I think he talks about that, and he would say, yeah, you can. You can, and then those things that you do will reshape your genes and reshape your brain chemistry and all those things. But usually one of the big things that he got on was you usually need a lot of help.
Yeah.
You need people who are empathetic and who are willing to help you. You usually can't do it on your own.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I think within the spiritual tradition, they're going to say that. I think that's one of the reasons why, by and large, spiritual traditions want us to have some kind of supportive community. Mm-hmm. You know, a community that's not going to kind of say, oh, you chose wrong.
Yeah.
You're bad. You know, throw the book at them, which is unfortunate because sometimes that's what happens with communities. Mm-hmm. But a community that's going to say, okay, well, no, we're going to invest in this person, and we're going to see them for more than just one particular choice, good or bad, that they made.
Yeah.
Because we need help with that kind of stuff.
And I think, you know, when Thom and I were talking earlier, thinking about the donut example, or if I'm somebody else that has a major sweet tooth and just have to watch that, it's really hard. And I was thinking, gosh, I guess we all have our weaknesses, you know, and then I was like, you know what? That's really the wrong way to look at it. You know, the fact of labeling it a weakness when we all have our differences. We all have our according to this research, we all have our biological makeup differences. You know, the fact that I would think of that as a weakness is more just part of my worldview coloring that versus just saying, you know what? Everybody has a different chemistry and a different makeup that puts them in a position to be where they are.
Yeah.
And I mean, to look at it that way, it's more helpful it's more kind to yourself as well as kind to other people.
Yeah. And I've talked about this with other groups before, what I find is being kind to ourselves is a real gift.
Yeah.
I you know, most of the people that I've been with in the 2 or 3 different groups that I've talked with we're really hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
We really don't cut ourselves much slack. And it really is a matter of kind of like what you were saying, CB, at the beginning with the sweets is, God, do I just have no willpower? Right. Am I really just that bad? And that doesn't help anything. That's once again why I like this guy who comes from his scientific background that can have more compassion oftentimes than people who come from maybe a religious background, but who are taught that somehow or another, yeah, you have this free will, and if you use it wrongly, you should be punished. You know, so I'm with him on that. Even though my worldview is not the same as his, I'm with him on that because my experience is we're really hard on ourselves. Mm-hmm. We really, really perhaps have super high standards, and when we don't live up to those standards, we're just constantly berating ourselves. I think it's social media. No, but I do think social media contributes.
It does.
It's like what you're saying about the comparison.
Yeah, it's just another avenue that we see that so much more frequently.
Yeah.
Just the curated ideal of what somebody puts forward versus the reality.
Right.
You know?
And I do think I see it both ways. You'll know I'm on social media a lot,
yeah.
But you know, I see some people have started like opening up about the realistic stuff more so in the past couple of years, but it definitely is an issue that, you know, we look at Instagram and we compare ourselves, and especially with me with the sugar cravings, I'm like seeing these people who, you know, are so fit and in shape, and they're like, you got to cut out sugar, you're doing it wrong. And it's like, oh, that is not what I need to hear. It's not that easy.
Right.
Yeah.
I was laughing, sharing about, there's a reality show that was out a while back about these trainers that would put on a bunch of weight and then work with somebody that was overweight, and then they would just take the weight right back off and just be like, why can't you do this? You know, I got fat, and now I'm fit, and, you know, you should just follow the plan I gave you. And it's just like, boy, that's so cruel.
Yeah. That's Pleasantville.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just follow the plan,
Yeah.
and everything should go the way that it went for me.
Right.
And so it doesn't take into account any of the complexity of what it is to be a unique individual and the beauty of what it means to be a unique individual. That somehow or another, those two things go together. And God, I wouldn't have it any other way. When I think about it, when I sit, that was the other thing this guy talked a lot about that fits right in with the spiritual world. And that is, take the time to self-reflect. Take the time to notice how you're reacting to other people or to yourself based on your choices.
And that's a scientist saying that.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
It is. He's saying you can have all the data in the world, and if you don't reflect on it a little bit, it'll just almost be meaningless. Because it all comes in service of how are we going to try to live together. Right?
Yeah.
How, one of the other stories that we were talking about earlier with him is that since he works at Stanford, he was at the Stanford graduation. And at the Stanford graduation, here's the high academic achievers, right?
Yeah.
So on his whole determinism thing, he would say they got the lucky stuff. He used the word luck a lot. So he would say they got parents that read to them and people that gave them the opportunity to do piano lessons and guitar lessons and voice lessons and environments that were loving enough and on and on and on. And he would say they had more neurons in certain areas than other people. And so here they are at Stanford. And I don't really want to go down that road too much, other than to say he's watching this wonderful spectacle where people are really congratulating them for accomplishing wonderful and had to be hard things, graduating from Stanford University. And then he noticed a guy over in the corner picking up the garbage. And he said to himself, yeah, how did he end up here and they end up there with his research? And what he said was, or what the guy interviewing said was, what I realized is you wrote this book as a response to that question. How did that guy end up there while all these people are over here? And the guy said, yeah, that's right. It's a book about how are we going to treat each other. Right? How are we going to treat the person picking up the garbage, or are we even going to notice the person picking up the garbage while all this is going on, and we're in many ways, rightfully so, patting people on the back for what
celebrating
they've done.
Yeah.
And that, to me, once again, that is a beautiful, beautiful question.
Because we just don't know where the guy picking up the garbage, he may have worked just as hard,
that's right,
but not had the, extra neurons,
right,
or whatever,
or the
to
social
help him.
support,
yeah.
or the on and on and on, yes, and then all those things come into play when we see people in the jobs that they're in.
Yeah.
And if we can think about it that way, why I was personally so attracted to it is it goes in the same place that most spiritual traditions go. It would be a heck of a lot more compassionate of a world. And a better place to live, if we could think about it that way.
Yeah. Help us not be so hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's not an excuse. Like, it's not like I didn't get the neurons, so I'm not going to go to Stanford. I'm not going to work hard.
Yeah.
It's not an excuse, but also can just help you, remind yourself that, like, you're doing a good job. You just,
You're being who you are,
Yeah.
and you're doing it the way you're doing it, and that's good.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, it speaks to that uniqueness of each person, created in a unique way, which is really cool. We spend a lot of time trying to make everything Pleasantville, like you said. I mean, everything the same, and everybody's kind of on the same page, and how great that is.
Yeah.
But we're all unique.
Yeah.
And that's an exciting thing because we all bring something different.
Yep. And that's one we could talk about on the next episode.
Well, guys, thank you so much for venturing into this topic, CB. We're glad that you were able to join us, and we're glad that you're listening with us, and hope that this discussion will give you just an inspiration to think more and listen more. Like Thom said, as we were exploring our own worldview, it's interesting to hear the perspective of others and just let that sit with us for a while and see what we may learn or grow from that. We'll put some links in the show notes to the book and the podcasts that we mentioned, just so that you can check those out if you'd like to learn a little more. And if you have something that comes across that you think is really interesting and you'd love for us to talk about, please share that with us. We'd love to hear that, and we're always excited to be able to talk about things that are relevant and on your mind. So thanks so much, and we hope to have you with us next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the More Than One Way podcast, brought to you by the Center for Spiritual Practice in Knoxville, Tennessee. We really appreciate your time and would love to hear your feedback. You can reach us by emailing hello@morethanonewaypod.com, or you can connect with us on social media using the handle @morethanonewaypod. If you found this episode helpful, we hope that you'll share it with your friends, with your family, with people you work with all the people who you know. Thank you, and take care.